In this clip I'm going to show you how to create the door that actually opens. Previously we just made the interface function and the line casting so that we know when we're near the door and when to try and open it. So if we open up the door blueprint, we'll see that in the viewport we have the door itself and a door frame. So inside the event graph we're going to first of all add a timeline. Now these are quite useful for creating movement. Within the blueprint it's pretty flexible. Rather than just kind of adding rotation value each time, we can actually create a nice kind of more organic sort of door movement. Imagine if you're inside like a spooky house or something and the door opens, it's not going to be necessarily a smooth kind of gradual opening. It might be kind of creak and a bit of a stutter, and it might kind of slowly start and then open really quickly and kind of slam open, or it could be really slow and gentle with kind of stops and starts in that. So you can use this timeline to create that effect without having to get into any code really, or very little sort of scripting to do that. So once you've added your timeline, first thing we're going to add is a float track. Now a float track is just basically a timeline track, essentially like in the sequence editor, but this just controls a number, and the floating point number in this case, which we will call .z. Now you can also add vector tracks if you wanted to control all three axes at the same time, but in this case we're just going to stick with just one number to control the Z. It's going to last for 3 seconds, so we'll put 3 into the length there, and if you just roll back on the mouse wheel you can see that the grey area represents our duration there. Now probably the best way of using these timelines is just to deal with numbers between 0 and 1 or 0 and -1. You can add bigger numbers, so for example if you wanted the door to open say 90 degrees, you could use 90 as a value. The problem is when you roll back to 90 on this, you have to roll back a real long way for it to make sense, and you lose the sort of width there. So the best thing I've found is just to do it between 0 and 1 and then multiply that value later on in the blueprint. So we're going to add a keyframe just by single clicking and right clicking there, and then add in the key, and we'll add another one at the 3-second mark here. Actually we'll put it at the top there, so add a keyframe. And you notice it's a very straight line. Now the nice thing about these is you can right click on these keyframes and go onto the user mode, and it gives you the option to create nice sort of curves like so. So you can adjust the way that those doors kind of open. This would open wide and then just come back a little bit. You can also add more keys to the middle, so this would make the door kind of open really sharply, open wider, and then come back slightly closed. But maybe something along these lines would sort of work. Perhaps something like that. Maybe move that one. These are quite fun to play around with. So we start at 0, it goes rapidly up at this point and then slows down as the door kind of comes to a fully open state. Okay, so once that's done, you might just want to compile and save, and then we need to add the rest of the code to this. So the next thing we do, so that's our door Z we've got here. Now we're going to multiply that. So it was between value of 0 and 1. So we're going to multiply it by, let's say it was 90 degrees you wanted to open it by, so we'll multiply that by 90. when this updates, we then want to set our position of the door, so we'll get a reference to the door mesh, and we'll use the set rotation. The set relative rotation is the one that we want for the static mesh there. Get rid of that reference. So on the update, we'll set relative rotation. We'll make a rotator, and this is onto the Z pin, and we'll link that together like so. So with a timeline, this update gets triggered every sort of frame update, so it keeps pinging off this pin every frame, and that's going to keep adding whatever the value is of our graph to the Z value of the door. So let's compile that and let's have a look, see if it works. So we're going to walk here, we're going to click on the door. You can see the door opening. There's a nice little swing at the end as well. Let's play it again so you can see it. Stand slightly further away. And then we can walk through potentially. However, you'll see that we can't actually physically fit through the door. Now, part of the reason for this is that when we first created our door collision mesh, we had the door handle included as part of that collision, which made the door a bit too thick. Now, quite a useful technique you can use is using the show collision option in the command. So you just press the little apostrophe key at the top corner of the keyboard to bring up the console, and then if you turn that on, you should be able to see the collision meshes. So it's the show collision, just to toggle on and off between that. Very useful if you start running into things. So if we just open up our door, which was here, find that in the content browser, and we'll show the collision. You see the purple box here? It's a bit too thick, isn't it? So if we select our collision mesh there, and we just shrink that just to a thin slice through the door, that should be fine. Save that. This time, with any luck, we can get through the door. There we are, he fits now. So that's basic door opening. Let's just check that the rotation of the door works properly as well. So we'll place a door on here, and we'll just rotate this one. Oops, not that one, sorry. Let's go back to our third person blueprint. Use one of these blueprint doors, and we'll just rotate it 90 degrees that way. We'll just check that the door behaves itself. Yeah, there we are. So it's worth checking that the door still opens correctly when you rotate them as well, because we're using the set relative rotation each time. That's why that works. Okay, so that's the basic door opening. The next bit we'll add is a method of having a key that you pick up to unlock the door with.